A room full of orcs? I draw my sword and charge.
I move through the shadows and circle around to the leader and then stab him.
I cast fireball into the room. Hey, we're in here too, you know.
Yeah, what the crap?
I don't really understand all of the angst. I'm a wizard. What do you think I would do? Well, he does have a really good point.
Yeah, he really does. Good thing I have evasion.
Hey, wait a second. Why are we attacking them? They've shown no aggression to us.
Because they're orcs. I mean, what else would we do?
Yeah, orcs equal stabby time.
Oh, come on, guys. Dungeon crawling gets really boring if all we do is fight stuff. I want to do some talkie-talkie.
Oh, crap. Somebody broke our barbarian.
One too many hits in the head. I'm still casting fireball. Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Luke Hart, and I've been a Dungeon Master since high school. On this channel, I give practical Dungeon Master advice that you can implement at your game table. Now, I really hate to say this, but the Barbarian actually brings up a really good point for once.
I knew I had it in me.
When you're running a D&D game, not everything can be combat. Well, technically it can, but you'll be neglecting two very important aspects of the game: exploration and social interactions, what most people call role-playing. And the same is true if your game is mostly social interactions or role-playing. You're going to be neglecting the other two important elements in Dungeons & Dragons. But why should you even care about this as a Dungeon Master? Why not just do whatever you want and run a game that's all combat or all role-playing or all exploration, depending upon your own personal whims and desires as a Dungeon Master?
Because the day I have to sit through an entire game session of talkie-talkie is the day I walk out.
Yeah, I don't mind a little bit of that role-playing stuff, but I live for combat. As much as I love casting fireball, I do enjoy a bit of exploration or problem solving.
Yeah, and sometimes I just need a break from all of the brutal bloodshed to sharpen my axe.
The chances are good that your players have a variety of things they enjoy doing in the game. You're gonna have some players that really love combat, and you're gonna have others that put up with it because they want to get into the social interactions and role-playing, or perhaps the exploration elements. Some players love puzzles and investigations, and they couldn't care less about role-playing or combat. Step one to running a game that appeals to all of your players' interests is to find out what interests them. Find out what they like by straight up asking them, or by observing their behaviors. Are your players bored? Are they paying attention? Are they goofing off? Are they on their phones? All of these are clues, subtle or overt clues, that your players are either enjoying what you're doing in your game or not. Ideally, what I think you should consider doing is running a game that is customized for your players' desires, what they like doing in the game. Maybe most of your players love combat, but they also enjoy a little bit of social interaction or puzzles or exploration mixed in. Or maybe you have a group full of thespians and all they want to do is roleplay. However, more than likely, you will have a mix of player types, a mix of things that your players enjoy doing. And when you have that sort of group, that's when it's even more important to have a variety of things in your game: combat, social interactions, explorations, puzzles, all of that good stuff, so that at any given point in time, whatever you're doing is appealing to at least some of your players. And the ones that aren't being appealed to in that particular moment, they know that eventually you'll get around to doing something that they really love. But if you got a guy who loves combat in his games and all you run is a role-playing game, yeah, he's not gonna probably stick around for very long. All right, now what I'm gonna do is give you some tips and advice for implementing these different encounter types in your games.
But first, I just want to let you know that I have a new 6th level adventure out on Drive-Thru RPG. It's called Into the Darkness, and it's really cool. You should check it out at the link down in the description.
Are you even gonna tell people what it's about?
Nope.
This is what happens when we cut the marketing budget. Okay, now some thoughts and advice on exploration scenes. You can have there be empty rooms or areas with secrets that can be found by your players if they poke around enough. and then reward your players as they explore. Give them information or treasures, unveil mysteries, or set up new ones. This is a chance for you to tease your players. You can even allude to other things going on in your campaign. Perhaps they find a very important letter written from the big bad evil guy to his minions and discover an important fact that will help them in the future. This might turn out to be something completely critical in a future adventure, and they would not have found it if they hadn't poked around and discovered it. You could also include something in your dungeon that the players must investigate and discover certain things about it in order to proceed further. Puzzles count as exploration in my book. Now, what you're going to find, I think, is that some players love puzzles and some players hate puzzles. I would try puzzles out to see if your players like them. Now, if you're good at making puzzles, great, make them. But if you're bad at it, you can usually search online and come up with some decent puzzles. Now, I personally am horrible at making puzzles, so I almost always find my puzzles online. As a player, I usually don't like puzzles either, which is why I usually solve them as quickly as possible, just to get them done and over with. I think traps go here in the exploration category as well. I usually aim to have at least one trap in my dungeons. It gives your rogues an opportunity to put their trap skills to use, and it also gives you a nasty surprise to throw at your players if they aren't paying attention. All right, next, thoughts on social interactions or role-playing. I always try to think of a way to have non-combatants in a dungeon, NPCs I should say, that your players can talk to. Prisoners or slaves to be rescued always seem to work fairly well. You can also use monstrous servants such as kobolds that are weak and cowardly and too afraid to fight back. In a case like this, your PCs are likely to have compassion and mercy on them, and instead of just slaughtering them outright, talk to them to extract information.
Please don't kill me. I'll do whatever you want. I'll tell you anything you want to know. Just don't kill me.
And another fairly easy way to slip in social interaction into your encounters is to not have the enemies attack first. This is hands down the easiest way to get role-playing into your dungeon. Now, the enemies may drop their hands to their weapons when they see that the PCs are there, but they don't immediately attack. Allow your players the opportunity to talk to them first. Now, many times a battle will break out eventually anyway, but at least give your players the opportunity to resolve that encounter in a way that doesn't involve conflict and murder. Because sometimes your players are going to want to resolve things without conflict. For instance, they might be low on resources, or they're just looking for something more interesting to do than kill something. Tricking monsters into letting you go, or letting you go by their guard post, that makes players feel pretty darn good about themselves. Very, very, very rarely in my games do I have enemies straight out attack the heroes. Now, a common problem that you may have with this approach I just mentioned is that there's almost always at least one player in a group who, upon seeing an enemy, immediately shouts out, "I attack!" I have a player that routinely declares Eldritch Blast or Fireball or something similar to that immediately when he sees a monster. Now, I've had conversations with all of my players explaining to them my reasonings for not having enemies always attack outright, and I consider it to be an instance of one player stealing another player's fun when he outright attacks the enemies. And that's exactly what it is, because one player wants to speak with them first, and the other player just comes in and attacks the enemy, robs and steals that opportunity away from him. That player who attacks first is not allowing this other player to interact with a part of that game that he finds interesting and fun. And I explain it to players who always want to attack first that you need to hold back a bit, let them talk, let them do their thing and have fun, because you and I both know that a combat is probably going to happen anyway. And if the player keeps on doing the same thing, well, then I just ignore him. He can be over there shouting Eldritch Blast or Fireball as much as he wants. I'm just ignoring him and I'm listening to the other players, and he gets the drift. Now, if you're looking for my thoughts on combat, I check out this playlist right here, because many of the videos in it deal with building awesome combats for your games. And until next time, I cast Fireball.
I stab him in the back.
Charge!